At this point, I would like to invite our speaker, the first speaker of tonight, Dr. Pınar Yeşin. Pınar works at the Swiss National Bank as a Senior Economist and also lectures at the University of Zurich since 2004. Pınar has a PhD in the US, dozens of publications in different areas of economy and finance. And I will actually leave it at that because I would like her to take more of the stage. Pınar. Thank you for the nice words. Thank you for the invitation. Key decisions. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. We all make choices daily, repetitively. Some are even dull questions. What do I cook tonight? What do I wear tomorrow? But some of our decisions are longer-term focused, infrequent, and they can have profound effects on our lives. What do I study in college? What kind of work do I want to do? How many children do I want to have, if any? How do I save for my old age? These decisions have a profound effect on our lives, on our happiness, on our future. How do we make these decisions? How do we know that we make the best decision? Well, I will suggest my key decisions, and maybe yours too, have 5 important elements. These are: recognize the opportunities, believe in your luck, have courage, think outside of the box, and stay flexible. Sure, after we make a decision, we have to work hard, persevere, don't give up easily. But we have to stay flexible also, evaluate the situation, maybe make a new decision if you need to. Sure, some of our decisions are irreversible. We might regret them with the hindsight, but we have to look forward to the future. The past is past. Life is a learning process. So don't be afraid to make any decision if you need to. Now, I want to give an example from my career path, how I made my career decisions. These were key to my current being now here. It's an interesting process from my point of view. In high school, I was good in math, physics, and chemistry, but I didn't know what to do. I seriously had no idea what I wanted to do later as work. I wanted to work, but I didn't know what to study. So I took the easy route to keep my options open. I studied mathematics at the university. It's a natural science, it's not the education department. Most people become high school teachers after they graduate, or they turn into IT, although this is not what you learn at the university. Not at all. I studied math, I loved it. I finished in 7 semesters, but I still didn't know what I want to do with this knowledge. But I didn't want to stay idle. So that summer I started working at a consulting company. Admittedly, I didn't find it very appealing, which is probably understandable because I was young, didn't have any experience. What can I consult? Still I tried, but I knew this was not what I wanted to do for long. One day I heard about the master's program in economics from a friend who was also applying. I found the idea interesting, so I applied as well. I must also maybe mention that studying math was a risk. I had to be courageous to study something I liked, because it was not an engineering or a business administration degree where most people want to do because they have a predefined career path and probably a good business opportunity afterwards. But math was also very useful for me. It allowed me actually to be accepted into the economics master's program because it's a very useful tool. Many people are afraid of it, but if you can use it, it brings you really high. And it also helps you to think abstract and analytical. So, I also applied for a teaching assistantship position at the same university. They took me immediately, which is also nice. So I quit my consulting job, happily, after 2 months of work. It's good to be like quick sometimes to make a decision. So I moved, basically, some of you know probably these places. I moved from one corner of the university campus to the other corner, just across the other side, to continue studying. Economics was hard for me. I was trained to be a natural scientist, and I had to become a social scientist all of a sudden. Math is useful, but it doesn't help you how people make decisions. How is this economy actually formed? So I had to learn like a social scientist. I liked it. I didn't give up. But I still didn't know how I could use this information. Maybe that's also a challenge of the education system. It doesn't necessarily tell you what you can do with this information that you acquire at the university. But I was lucky. That summer, so at the end of my first year of the master's program, the largest European economics conference was held in Istanbul. It was held there only once, and this is exactly when I was there. And this is the European Economic Association and Econometric Society European meetings. They had a long tradition, and I was there just when it happened. I recognized the opportunity immediately, volunteered, worked for the local organizing committee. Almost 1,000 economists from all over Europe came to this conference to present their work, to present their research, discuss new ideas, and to network. And I was allowed to attend the sessions. So I did. I was sitting in a session that I still vividly remember. That conference was the turning point for me. So that session was about transition economics. Now, I didn't tell you, this is year 1996. And that's a few years after the fall of Berlin Wall, after the collapse of communism in the Central and Eastern Europe, after the dissolution of Soviet Union. Many countries in that area are undertaking huge structural reforms. They are moving from a centrally planned economy where prices are set by an agency to a market economy where prices are set by this invisible hand. They had huge reforms, such as creating a financial sector, banks. They are removing all the trade barriers. International trade becomes an option. All of a sudden, the environment changes so drastically that the economic opportunities you are given change. And this has such a big impact on the lives of these people who live in those countries. So I attended a session that looked at the economic impact of these structural reforms in these countries. I found the subject mind-blowing. Suddenly I saw what I could do, what I wanted to do, to understand how this whole world functions, how the policies undertaken, or for that matter, not undertaken, can impact our lives, economic opportunities we have, the choices we make. At that session, I decided to study economics, do a PhD. So continue going to school in a way. But I also decided that I wanted to go abroad. I decided I don't want to stay in Turkey because I have to broaden my horizon, meet new people, meet new ideas, think differently. Only less than a year later, I started a PhD program in the US, which is famous for its rigorous economic research, and I had to write a doctoral thesis. The idea was not difficult for me to get at the time. I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Turkey. If you are similar to my age or older, you must remember the inflation that persisted for so long. When I was growing up, it was normal that every year there was inflation of 50 to 100%. So when you negotiated your rent, your wages, you always took that into account. You had to double whatever you were requesting. I still remember the 5 lira from the top. I was very little at the time. When I left Turkey, 10 million could be used to buy a piece of bread or a bus ticket. We were paying in millions for ordinary daily items. I kept thinking, why does Turkey have to go through this high inflation period for so long? It's not hyperinflation, it's not Argentina, but why should it be persisting for so long? What can be the reason? So during my studies, I came to the idea that tax evasion and tax collection costs can be a reason behind this. So the government, on purpose, and I'm not blaming anyone, the government on purpose can choose to print money to finance its spending if it cannot collect taxes from some part of the sector. So I wrote a theoretical model. I showed, yes, inflation is optimal from the government's perspective. It has to collect some money somehow, and inflation is a tax on your money holdings in your pocket. And I brought this model into the data, and not only for Turkey, for several other countries. It was optimal. So you could explain some part of the persistent inflation rates through these two phenomena. Now, when I talk about economics, and you see that I love economics, economics is actually a study of choices we make. Choices regarding the scarce productive resources, which are your time, your capital. So basically, economics studies how much we work, how much we produce, how much we consume, how much we save. And the environment we live in has a big impact on our decision. We take the environment as given, and we try, in my jargon, we optimize. So the environment has this big impact, but no matter how the environment looks like, I would suggest that we should try to recognize opportunities, stay flexible, believe in our luck, have courage, and think outside the box. You don't have to do the same things as everybody else does, because nobody does the same thing anyway. So to conclude, it is our choices that show who we truly are, rather than our abilities. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So that was a wonderful talk. Thank you. I just wanted to ask. So if you had to bring your interest in mathematics from your earlier days to what you're doing today, do you find that there are concrete links?
Yes.
Do you actually deal with numbers every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Numbers and models,
Okay.
theoretical abstract.
Okay, so do you believe in decisions based on numbers?
Sure.
Sure. That could be a matter of debate for later with the rational decision making. But
well, we don't have to be rational all the time. There are also interesting studies that show there's a new, economics has a wide perspective. There are the rational expectations. I studied in Minnesota, so this is where I come from. I want to believe that we make the best decision based on what we know. But yes, there are other aspects. Maybe some of you who live here are familiar with some of the research that is done here at the University of Zurich by Professor Ernst Fehr. For example, he showed that recently he was in the newspapers actually about bankers, whether if you work in the finance sector, it seems like you are more likely to misrepresent what you actually know or have. It is like a herding behavior. So maybe it's not rational, but since everybody...
Actually, economists there.
And he was in the news quite a lot to show that this sector is different from the others. Although it's the same people, it doesn't like... And then there is another research that I particularly found interesting about how a particular hormone affects your decisions. So they made men smell the hormone oxytocin, which is a female hormone linked to bonding. You have it when you are breastfeeding a child, for example. They increase. So if men smell this, they make different decisions, they become more generous.
So the four of you in this room, when you leave.
So you might think you know everything and you really make the best decision, but some external effects, what you smell, changes your decision, and it has nothing to do with the concept itself.
Very interesting. So just one last question in that way, maybe, again, it may be outside your expertise area, but you talked about inflation in Turkey, and I thought about inflation in Switzerland, and I realized I don't know anything about inflation in Switzerland. Do we have any, do you know anything about the recent history?
Switzerland has been quite conservative in terms of inflation for a long time. So in my doctoral thesis, I had Switzerland, by coincidence, by the way, in my data set. And Switzerland scored the best.
To make the decisions.
They were lowest in terms of inflation rates, how much government spending they financed with printing money. They were really exemplary. So it has been very low for a long time, because my data series started in the 70s, so it's a long time. And I should also mention that economics is a very young science. There's very little data about the past, so our history or memory is very short, because there's no available data. Right now, inflation, if you ask, is about 0, but I think expectations are even lower than 0. So since the financial crisis,
what is that called? Deflation.
Deflation, and central banks don't like deflation because it is associated with depression, especially in the end of 90s, early 30s. During the Great Depression, prices were decreasing quite sharply, and there was the Great Depression. So everybody associates the two, but they don't have to be associated. But central banks still fear deflation.
Right. Thank you again, Pınar. And